This April, I visited the Thomas the Tank Engine event at the Hara Model Railway Museum twice and the Railway Series exhibition once. The museum actually had two separate events. On one day, some of the props were on static display inside glass cases, and on another day, they were running on the museum's layout. Also, the Railway Series exhibition displayed the props statically. So in this video, we're gonna take a look at the backgrounds and current conditions of the props, the ones now preserved at the museum and featured in the Railway Series exhibition. But before we get into the topic, I'd like to make two things clear. One, I am not a professional cameraman. Some videos I took have reflections on the glass display cases, and others could only be taken from too far away.
Yeah, I'm not a pro, you get what you get.
Second, while I have knowledge regarding the railways in the real world to some extent, I'm not very familiar with the props of Thomas. I did some research on Wiki and other sources, but there may be some inaccuracies, so take everything I say with a grain of salt. With that out of the way, let's dive in. Since the first volume of the Railway series was published in 1945, two attempts had been made to adapt the stories into a television series, but both ultimately failed. In 1980, a producer, Britt Allcroft, obtained permission from the original author, the Reverend Wilbert Awdry, and acquired the television rights. What was needed at this point was a pilot. In the world of television production, a pilot or pilot episode would be created before full-scale series production, primary for presentation to broadcasters, sponsors, and advertising agencies. To fund the production of a pilot, Britt mortgaged her own home and commissioned director David Mitton to produce the film. After serving as a special effects technician on Jerry Anderson productions such as Thunderbirds, Mitton established his own production company, Clearwater Futures Limited. The studio was in Battersea, London, where the pilot episode was shot with almost scratch-built props, more specifically Gauge 1 models, which were 1/32nd scale. Around this time, the series officially garnered the name Thomas the Tank Engine, and Down the Mine, a story from the original book, was chosen for the pilot. When ITV viewed the completed pilot, they greenlit the show for the broadcast. With that, Britt had served as executive producer for season 1 through 5 from 1984 to 2000, as well as the franchise's first feature film, Thomas and the Magic Railroad. From season 2 onwards, the main production base moved to the larger Shepperton Studios in Surrey, where numerous props were built and used for filming, but more on that later. After season 7, Britt fully stepped away from the production of the series, and from season 8 onward, Hit Entertainment took over as the production company. Although the overall style differed from the previous seasons, filming with props continued. Following season 11, the second feature film, The Great Discovery, was produced and released in 2008. That same year, season 12 was made using props for the majority of the scenes, but the engine's faces and some characters were rendered in CG. And after around 25 years, filming with props concluded in 2008 with this season. From season 13 onward, the show switched to full CG animation. Meanwhile, some of the original props were transferred to Nitrogen Studios in Vancouver, Canada, where they served as physical references for creating the CG models. A certain number of these props were later moved to the Hara Model Railway Museum in Yokohama, Japan, where they have been occasionally on display to the public since March 2014. Now, allow me to introduce the founder of this place. The Hara Model Railway Museum is a place where part of the late Nobutaro Hara's extensive collection of model railways. Born in 1919, Mr. Hara showed deep fascination with railways from early childhood. During the Great Kanto earthquake in 1923, he evacuated while holding this model train in his arms. After the Second War, he joined Kokuyo, a company that manufactures stationery and office supplies. During his tenure, he invented the world's first automated three-dimensional warehouse and personally filed more than 300 technical patents. He also traveled to many countries and amassed approximately 6,000 model locomotives and rolling stock, arguably one of the largest collections in the world. A portion of this collection went on public display in July 2012 when the Hara Model Railway Museum opened. Although Mr. Hara himself did not create it, the museum houses one of the world's largest Gauge 1 layouts. Some of his Gauge 1 models are preserved here in operational condition. Mr. Hara passed away in 2014, but the museum remains open to this very day. And in its layout, the props of the Thomas the Tank Engine occasionally run during special events. Now, let's take a look at the props currently preserved at the museum, which were displayed in both static and operational conditions. Thomas. The very first prop of Thomas used in the aforementioned pilot film was built from various plastic sheets, with a chassis presumably repurposed from existing model railway locomotives. However, the rather unstable running performance of this chassis became a major issue. As a result, Thomas received a new chassis, primarily adapted from Marklin's BL55. It offered better electrical pickup and enabled stable running. This prop was used from season 1 to 3. However, deterioration of the plastic body eventually became a problem, so it was replaced with a new one made from fiberglass resin. This prop was mainly used in season 4 and 5. After the production of Thomas and the Magic Railroad was confirmed, another new Thomas prop was needed. There were several reasons for this, but the main one was the need for the model to run lively in perfect condition at all times. The new body was made brass with a matte finish, and the chassis featured a custom-made brass underframe fitted with CNC machined driving wheels. By the way, CNC machining is a manufacturing process that uses computer numerical control to cut, drill, and shape materials precisely. This brass model was used for the majority of the film. Meanwhile, the earlier fiberglass resin model was also painted with a matte finish and upgraded with a brass chassis, and it was used in some scenes of the movie as well. By season 6, the brass chassis was replaced with a CNC machined aluminium one. This new chassis design was adopted for every engine built after this season. The brass model had been primarily used through season 11, as it was robust enough to withstand scenes where the body became dirty. Meanwhile, the resin model also continued to be used regularly. However, by season 11, as it had already been in service for 13 years, and after appearing in the episode Thomas and the Stinky Cheese, it was retired from filming. At the same time as season 11 was being filmed, Hit Entertainment also needed to shoot the movie The Great Discovery. To meet this tight schedule, 3 new brass-made Thomas props were built. They were built by Philip Leibs, who had also created the props for the 2004 film Thunderbirds. Half of the movie was filmed using the existing brass models, while the rest was shot with the new rebuilt ones. They were used for most of the filming in season 12, but the old brass model also continued to be used as well. After filming with models had finished, the old brass model appeared in the BBC's 2009 children's charity program, Children in Need. It was then stored at Nitrogen Studios before going on display at the museum in 2014. On this brass model of Thomas, the front cab window sits slightly higher than it does on the resin model. His face looks like this. This particular face was made for season 3, but was never used during this season. It did, however, appear at a special event held at Hamleys in London in 1992, the year after season 3 aired. After making its on-screen debut in season 4, it was used regularly from then on, including during the aforementioned BBC charity program. Regarding the body, it has been preserved in good condition overall. These red stripes, meanwhile, have faded slightly. However, considering that this model was often heavily tarnished during many scenes throughout the model era, this seems to be natural wear and tear. The running condition is very stable, despite its chassis being around 25 years old. And considering its age, like the other props, its running time per day is limited to a total of 1 hour. That being said, as you can see, Thomas runs smoothly with Annie and Clarabelle. Speaking of the two, Annie and Clarabelle. The very first props of Annie and Clarabelle were modified from the Gauge 1 LBS Stradley coaches produced by 10 Mile. After being used during the filming of the pilot film, they continued to appear throughout season 1 and 2. However, as they deteriorated with age, 2 new models were built using the kits of 10 Mile once again for season 3 onward. These also eventually wore out. So, resin models were then scratch built and used from season 5 after the middle of the season 8. Even these, however, suffered from deterioration of the bodywork and axle boxes. As a result, another set of resin models were produced, and they were used from the partway through season 8 until the end of the season 12. After being stored at Nitrogen Studios, they have been preserved in the museum. Unlike the props used until the middle of season 8, these models feature the same designs of wheels and axle boxes as the ones that appeared in season 3. Also, if you look closely, you can see passengers seated inside the carriages. And on the day of my visit, Thomas was pulling these 2 carriages on the layout. Edward. The prop of Edward used from season 1 was made from several plastic sheets of varying thicknesses. Its chassis was a Marklin BL55, and the front 4 wheels are replaced with a bogie, making the locomotive a 440 arrangement. However, during the filming of season 3's Trust Thomas, one side of the cab got cracked as Edward's model fell from the set. The tender steps had also been borrowed from Marklin BL-78, but they eventually broke due to age and were later replaced with replicas. Because of these variants, from Season 10 onward, 2 new props of Edward were built, both fitted with a brass-made body and a CNC-machined aluminium chassis. These models were used until the end of Season 12, and one of them is now preserved in the museum. The main design differences from the original plastic prop include a protrusion on the left side of the cab to house the motor, the buffer sitting slightly lower, and the buffer beam which is thicker. Interestingly, these modifications were reflected in the CGI model. The face has this smiling expression, which appeared frequently throughout the series. Inside the cab, the upper half features detailed parts, while the lower half contains a block to cover the motor inside. As for the current condition of the prop, the middle axle boxes on both sides of the tender are missing. Nevertheless, Edward runs well, and when I visited, he was pulling a Marklin-built powdered freight silo container car around the layout. I'd like to see him pulling one of the small passenger coaches owned by the museum, maybe next time. Henry. The prop of Henry used from Season 1 was built using plastic sheets of various thicknesses. It could be modified between the old shape and the new shape depending on the scene. The chassis was taken from a Marklin BL-78, while the trailing wheels were removed. From Season 10 onward, 2 new Henry props were built, featuring brass bodies and CNC-machined aluminium chassis. These models were used until the end of Season 12. After being stored at Nitrogen Studios, one of them is now preserved in the museum. I'll talk about the other prop later. The main design differences from the original plastic prop are the simplified brake pipe hole on the buffer beam, and the rivets on the buffer houses are gone. The face has this sad expression, which also appeared in the series. As for the model's current condition, the handrails are slightly bent, and the ladder on the left side of the tender is also absent. The details inside the cab have been removed, but it has been in this state since it was stored at Nitrogen Studios. Despite that, Henry was running in good condition. On the layout, he was pulling 2 of the resin-made red express coaches that were introduced after Magic Railroad. It's so satisfying to see a big engine pulling express coaches and passing stations. Gordon. The very first prop of Gordon used in the pilot film was built by Clearwater Futures, with a body made from plastic sheets of varying thicknesses. However, like Thomas, it had quite an unreliable electrical pickup and smoke unit. Once the production of Season 1 was greenlit, the original chassis was replaced with one from Marklin BL-78 locomotive. To fit the new chassis, the bottom part of the boiler was reshaped into a block-ish design. This prop of Gordon was primarily used up to Season 9. During Season 10, 2 new brass props of Gordon were built, each fitted with a CNC-machined aluminium chassis. After filming for Season 12 was completed, one of these brass models was stored at Nitrogen Studios and later preserved in the museum. Compared to the original plastic prop, the trailing wheels moved forward, joining his driving wheel chassis. Also, from Season 12 onward, the red stripes inside the tender were removed. Regarding the current condition of the prop, all the axle boxes on the left side of the tender are missing. However, Gordon has been in this condition since it was stored at Nitrogen Studios. Inside the cab, there are various gauges and equipment. I'm not sure if it still works, but the fire door of the boiler glows in the dark, much like a real steam locomotive. The face features this serious expression, which occasionally appeared in the series. Now, about his running scene, Gordon was not operating on the day of my visit. The truth is, the running schedules of some props are rotated on a daily basis during the museum's special events. This means there are days when Gordon and several other characters do not run. I know he's in operational condition, but my timing has never worked out, despite the fact that I have visited this museum 5 times in total so far. He was at a sighting like this, and that's all I got. James. The body shell of the first prop of James, used from Season 1, was made of plastic, while the chassis and tender wheels were repurposed from Marklin BL-55. This model suffered several mishaps over the years, including a deteriorating funnel that had to be temporarily patched with black putty, and falling on the floor during the filming of the Magic Railroad, which damaged the cab. Despite this unlucky instance, it remained in use after Season 9. From Season 10 onward, 2 new James props were built, each featuring a brass-made body and a CNC-machined aluminium chassis. These models primarily used until Season 12. After the production of the model series ended, one of the props was stored at Nitrogen Studios with the CG tracking markers still attached. As a side note, these tracking markers had been added to the Smokebook store during Season 12 to make the CGI faces move in sync with the props. Since 2014, it has been moved and preserved in the museum. The main differences from the plastic model is a shorter and thicker funnel. Also, like Henry, the rivets on the front buffer beam and and the brake pipe hole were also simplified. These modifications were applied to the CGI model as well. And similar to Edward, the upper half of the cab featured detailed parts, while the lower half had a solid block to create space for the motor. However, the prop was displayed with these parts removed. The face has this smiling expression that was frequently used during the model era. Like Gordon, James was not running on the day of my visit, but it had been rotated 180 degrees on the turntable. Also, I've never seen James running in person either. Someday, I'm going to see these two running in real. Percy. The body of the Percy's prop used from Season 1 was made of plastic with the chassis repurposed from Marklin BL-80, but during the production of Season 2, the left cylinder came loose. Because of this, there are moments when he runs wobbly. The middle lamp iron also broke, and it seems to have been patched with glue. Due to these agings, a brand new Percy model was made before the shooting of the Magic Railroad. Like Thomas's updated prop, it featured a brass body and chassis, along with CNC machined driving wheels. Meanwhile, the original plastic model received a matte finish, and its Marklin chassis was replaced with a custom-made brass one. Later, during the production of Season 6, this chassis was swapped for a CNC machined aluminium chassis. While Season 10 was being produced, 2 new brass models of Percy were made. To reduce production costs, one of these new brass models reused the chassis from existing brass model. As a result, the original brass model was left without chassis, so it was fitted with a CNC machined chassis previously used on the plastic model. The 2 new brass models were mainly used until Season 12. Meanwhile, the original brass model of Percy used from the Magic Railroad was stored at Nitrogen Studios and later preserved at the museum. Compared to the plastic model, the rivets on both couplers had been removed. A headlamp was also fitted to the front, and this modification was carried over to the CGI model as well. However, the tail lamp was removed for some reason. The face had this normal expression that had possibly been in use since the Magic Railroad. As for the running condition, although the current Percy's chassis is almost as old as that of Thomas, it runs very smoothly. He was pulling a grey painted Southern Railway 25-ton brake van. Now, about the last engine on static display at the event, I was expecting to see Toby. But to my surprise, instead of him, there was Oliver, my absolute favorite character. Oliver. According to the Thomas Tank merch, Oliver and Mavis were the first models in the series to feature a glass body. Meanwhile, just like Henry and Gordon, the chassis was made with parts adapted from the Marklin BL-78. This model appeared in every season from Season 3 to 7 and then made appearances in 2 episodes in Season 12. After being kept in storage at Nitrogen Studios, it was eventually preserved in the museum. About the current condition of Oliver, the handrails on both sides of the boiler are bent and warped, and the one on the left side of the water tank is missing. Still, given that this prop was made 34 years ago, some degree of aging is, I think, only natural. The ramp iron on the right is also missing. However, it had already disappeared in Season 6 and 7. When Oliver returned in Season 12, a replacement was made, and that new ramp iron kept fitted even after the model was transferred to the museum. I guess that the newly made ramp iron was unstable, and was removed so that he wouldn't drop it while running. The face has this normal expression which appeared in the show, though part of the paint on its left eye has peeled off. As for the running condition, unlike the other props we've seen so far, he uses a chassis made more than 30 years ago. Despite that, Oliver ran smoothly and was pulling Henrietta. He seemed to be struggling with running when I visited this place last time, but appears to have been repaired since then. Now, let's take a look at some of the props that were not on static exhibition, but running on the layout. Toby. The prop of Toby used in the Season 1 had its body made from resin and plastic, with a chassis modified from a Marklin BL-80. This model continued to be used until the Great Discovery. During the production of Season 12, 2 new resin models were built with CNC machined aluminium chassis. One of these was later stored at Nitrogen Studios and remains on display at the museum. Toby has this worried face, which was featured in Season 4 and 5, and remodeled for Season 6. The body is painted in a darker brown than the older model. As the latest built prop among all characters in the museum, Toby was running smoothly on the layout and was pulling Henrietta. Donald and Douglas. On the day of my visit, Douglas was running, while Donald was not, so I'll basically talk about Douglas this time. The body of Douglas is made from plastic, with a chassis and some body parts borrowed from Marklin BL-55. He debuted in Season 2 with Donald and appeared in every season through Season 7, with occasional appearances in later seasons as well. After filming for Season 12 wrapped up, he has been preserved at the museum since 2014. Just like Edward and James, the inside of the cab features the same split upper and lower structure. He is fitted with a neutral facial expression used in the show. Also, Donald and Douglas, including their bodies and chassis, are over 40 years old, making them the oldest operating props among all the characters preserved in the museum. Despite their age, the bodies remained in excellent condition. The chassis of Douglas seemed to have no issues either, and he ran smoothly with a brass-made tanker. Bill and Ben. The bodies of William Van's props are made of plastic, with their chassis created by modifying Marklin BL-80. They had almost appeared in every season from Season 2 to 12. During the production of Series 10, both chassis were replaced with new ones created by CNC machining. After filming for Series 12 ended, the props were preserved at the museum. Both engines were fitted with a neutral facial expression that first appeared in Season 10. While their chassis are rather new, their bodies, like those of Donald and Douglas, are over 40 years old. Despite that, their condition looked quite good and the two were running smoothly. Mavis. The prop of Mavis was made with both plastic and brass, and like Oliver, it was one of the first models to feature a brass body. From Season 3 onward, this model appeared in every season. After filming for Series 12 ended, the model has been preserved at the museum. It is fitted with a puzzled facial expression that has been used since Season 3. As a side note, among all standard gauge characters preserved in the museum, Mavis is the only one with weathering applied to his body. The model runs smoothly and was pulling Henrietta. And that concludes most of the props at the Hara Model Railway Museum. Now let's take a look at the props at the event, the World of Thomas the Tank Engine exhibition, which also took place in Yokohama City. As video recording was prohibited at this venue, I will only show you the pictures. Boco. During the production of Season 2, Boco's prop was built using a plastic body mounted on a chassis fitted with two bogies. The rear bogie was made by modifying a Marklin 25 diesel shunter, while the front bogie was non-powered and could be configured as either a 6-wheel or 4-wheel bogie. This interchangeable system allowed the same chassis to be used for Daisy as well. But because of this, there were scenes where Daisy appeared while still fitted with Boco's 6-wheel bogie. Boco sadly made no further appearances after Season 6, and only its body was placed into storage. Daisy, meanwhile, appeared in the feature-length special, Calling All Engines, still fitted with Boco's chassis. After that, she did not appear again during the model era, and was presumably kept in storage. In 2020, she was displayed at Drayton Manor, still fitted with Boco's chassis. Following the event, Daisy's body was returned to storage, while the chassis was removed from her and reinstalled on Boco's body. Boco was subsequently exhibited at the Clearwater event, a fan event held at Midland Railway Berkeley in 2021. After being exhibited at Kyoto Railway Museum in 2025, he was moved to the event at Yokohama last April. Boco was fitted with this face, having a smiling expression that was used in the show. Despite the oldest prop on display at this exhibition, the surface of it remains quite good. However, the entire body has gradually developed a downward curve since Season 3. Real-world rolling stock can, of course, swerve in a similar way due to long-term aging and deterioration. While repairs could restore it to its original shape, the process would require replacing numerous components, making similar restoration work on Boco quite difficult. Class 40. During the production of Season 4, the prop of Class 40 was built using a plastic body and a CNC machined chassis. The character appeared only in this season, and seems to have been kept in storage for many years afterwards. In early 2020, however, it was displayed at Drayton Manor, fitted with a surprised face. With the face later changed, the model was exhibited in Kyoto in 2025 and in Yokohama last April. The model is equipped with a face featuring a mouth shaped like a tilde, and other faces were also on display. Perhaps because the character has relatively few appearances, its overall condition remains comparatively good. Narrow gauge engines. Here, we'll take a look at behind the scenes at the narrow gauge props that appeared in the series. When they first debuted in Season 4, the models were built with brass bodies and a chassis using the parts from the existing O-gauge models. models. However, their small size made it difficult to fit smoke generators and batteries for the arm mechanisms inside the bodies. For Season 5 therefore, larger models were newly created with enlarged bodies while retaining the original track gauge. These new models featured brass bodies and were equipped with CNC machined wheels and chassis. During the production of Season 8, the original chassis on all the narrow gauge engine props had become too worn to use. While the original wheels and some parts were reused, newly made chassis were fitted. The models were used until Season 12. Some were stored at Nitrogen Studios, and from 2014 they were placed on a static display at the Hara Model Railway Museum. Among them, Rhaenyra's and Peter's Sam were exhibited in Kyoto in 2025 and in Yokohama this April, along with other narrow gauge rolling stock and structures. Rhaenyra's prop is fitted with a smiling face used since Season 6, although the painted teeth disappeared by Season 11. Peter Sam's model is similarly fitted with a smiling face introduced in Season 6, but its painted teeth disappeared in Season 10. Also, larger resin models of the red, blue, and semi-open narrow gauge coaches and wagons were on display. Murdoch. The prop of Murdoch was built during the production of Season 7 and featured a brass body. After debuting in Season 7, he appeared in Season 8, 11, and 12. The model was subsequently stored at Nitrogen Studios with a tracking marker still attached. It was later displayed in Kyoto in 2025 and in Yokohama last April. The prop had its neutral face, which also appeared in the show. The body looked in good condition. Personally, I would love to see him hauling a heavy freight train on the layout at the Hara Model Railway Museum. But with its long wheelbase, I wonder if that will be possible. Thomas and Percy, but gauge 3.5 models, or 3.5, I think. In 1996, while planning the filming of Thomas and the Magic Railroad, the production team considered using gauge 3.5 models instead of gauge 1. Thomas and Percy were built in this larger scale, but due to the budget constraints, the production ultimately used the already existing gauge 1 models. Still, this scale of Thomas was later used in the music video for Season 5. Next, several episodes of Season 6, as well as a spin-off series Jack and the Pack, primarily featured the gauge 3.5 models of Thomas and Percy, working alongside the Soto Construction Company vehicles, as they are significantly larger than standard gauge 1 models. These two models remained in use until Season 12, and since 2009, they have been primarily on display at Thomastown, an indoor theme park near Tokyo. They were later exhibited at Kyoto in 2025 and in Yokohama last April. Thomas's model was fitted with a facial expression that first appeared in the spin-off series. Interestingly, just like the real LBSC E2, the counterweight on the middle driving wheel is attached in the opposite direction. For some reason, this detail was never carried over to any of the other Thomas props or CGI models, apart from this one made for a cancelled movie. Percy was wearing this face, which I think was never used in the show. One thing I noticed, however, is that the connecting rod joints looks rather crudely made. Compared to those on the gauge 1 models, the gauge 3.5 version appears somewhat incomplete. Molly. The prop of Molly was built during the production of Series 9 using a brass body and a CNC machined chassis. A second model was made, but it was never completed and remains unfinished. From Season 9 onward, the model appeared in every season until it was retired after the Great Discovery. It was stored at Nitrogen Studio before going on display at Drayton Manor from 2020 to 2022. It was later exhibited in Kyoto in 2025 and in Yokohama last April. The model is fitted with a smiling facial expression, which also appeared in the show. The body is mostly in good condition, though part of the cab's roof is bent and 2 ramp irons are missing. The latter were intentionally removed during the Drayton Manor exhibition and repurposed for a Thomas prop that was preserved on site. Harold. The prop of Harold, which first appeared in Season 2, had a body made of styling sheet with plastic used for the windows and propeller. During the production of Series 8, 2 new brass props were created to replace the original. One was used as a main model in the series, while the other was kept as a spare with no mouth and never used. In Season 10, a moving eye mechanism and working lights were added. This model was last used in The Great Discovery, and the ones that appeared from Season 12 onward were recreated in CGI. Both the main and the spare models were preserved, and the main model was exhibited at the Hara Model Railway Museum. Later, it was swapped with a mouthless spare, and the main model was then displayed at Kyoto in 2025 and in Yokohama last April. Regarding the body, although part of the tail rotor is missing, it remains in good condition. As for the face, or more specifically the mouth, it is fitted with a surprise expression, but it is unclear whether this was ever used in the show. Henry. This is the second brass Henry model that appeared from season 10 onward. It is fitted with a special expression, which appeared multiple times. As for the condition of the body, some handrails were missing or bent, but otherwise there were no major issues. While the Henry on display at the museum has an empty cab, this model features a fully detailed interior. One interesting detail is its tender. During the filming of the episode It's Good to Be Gordon, a smoke machine was mounted on the plastic Henry's tender. However, a malfunction caused an explosion that damaged the plastic tender. As a result, in season 10 and 11, there were scenes where the original plastic Henry was coupled with a newly built brass tender. Fortunately, the floor of the damaged plastic tender was still usable. A newly fabricated acrylic tender body was mounted on it, along with wheels transplanted from the original plastic tender. It was coupled to the plastic Henry, though it did not appear in season 12. Meanwhile, the plastic tender body itself was repaired and fitted to a newly made tender floor. This tender was then coupled to the second brass Henry, repainted to match the engine itself. This model appeared in season 12, and the tender body on display here, possibly the original plastic one. Width. The aforementioned Philip leaves created a proper width during the production of season 11. The body is made of brass and two CNC machined chassis were built. The model was used in season 11 and 12 before being stored in Mattel's warehouse. It was later exhibited at an event in Kyoto in 2025 and in Yokohama last April. The face is fitted with a half-open mouth expression used in the series. Other facial expressions and his glasses were also on display. Because width is a garbage collecting engine, the body's weathering is extremely heavy. But there seems to be no issues such as missing parts. Hank only appeared in season 12 and two of his props were made. Because the filming schedule was rather tight, the models had to be produced in a short period. To save time and cost, the body was made of plastic instead of brass and the chassis was produced using the same mold as Spencer's. After season 12 ended, the models were stored in a warehouse. Between 2020 and 2022, one of the two was exhibited at Drayton Manor. Subsequently, Hank was displayed in Kyoto in 2025 and in Yokohama last April, although it is unclear whether it was the same one once displayed at Drayton. While CG faces were primarily used in the series, the model actually had 5 model faces and is fitted with this expression that briefly appeared in the show. And that concludes the analysis of the props displayed at the exhibition. However, I actually visited one more location where props were on display. On April 18th and 19th of this year, the model railway company KATO, or KATO for English viewers, held an event where fans brought and exhibited their own Thomas models. Among them were the real props of Mighty Mac and Rocky. Mighty Mac. The prop of Mighty Mac was built ahead of Series 9 with a brass body and a CNC machined chassis. The model was used every season till season 12. It was later confirmed to have been exhibited at Drayton Manor in 2020. In 2025, as part of the 80th anniversary celebrations of the Railway series, Mattel auctioned off several props from the model era on an auction site, Prop Store. This was done as a charity initiative supporting the UK's National Autistic Society. The Mighty Mac prop along with 16 faces was also included and sold off for £22,680. The winning bidder was Medical Art, a Japanese model retailer specializing in British railway models. After the prop arrived at the shop and received some repairs, Mighty Mac was displayed at the event. The surface of the body shows some slight paint wear, and Mac's buffer beam is slightly warped. However, this appears to be the result of the natural aging over the years, as the model was already in this condition when it was put up for auction. On the day of the event, both Mighty and Mac were fitted with smiling face, which occasionally appeared in the show. Additionally, although the model did not run during this event, its chassis is still fully operational. I look forward to seeing it on display and hopefully running at future exhibitions. Rocky. During the production of Series 10, 2 brass-made props of Rocky were built. One was constructed with a support block attached for use in the scenes where Rocky lifts engines back onto the rails. This model was equipped with a motor for the wheelhouse and eye mechanism. The other was built without the support block and designed specifically for engines to tow him. It also featured eye mechanism, but not any motors for the wheelhouse. The model without a support block continued to be used until season 12 and moved to the Nitrogen Studios after the filming. It was later displayed at a fan event on the Midland Railway Berkeley in May 2019, followed by an exhibition at Drayton Manor from 2020 to 2022. It was then put up for auction on the aforementioned prop store site, where medical art won the bid for £13,860. The face was fitted with this neutral expression used in the series. The roof had been removed, allowing a clear view of the eye mechanism inside. Rocket was the longest prop I had seen so far, and it commanded an overwhelming presence at the venue. Also on display were a shed and a canal boat from the harbour set used in the series, along with a gauge 1 wagon, a close-up model of Duncan, and an engine driver. By the way, the medical art sometimes displays these props inside a model shop. If you're planning to buy any models while you're there, I highly recommend stopping by. And that's all the props I saw at 3 events. Personally, it's been very special to see so many of the props and models I used to watch on TV up close like this. And seeing how both events were bustling with visitors, seriously, I was impressed by the fact that this franchise is still beloved by a lot of people. I'd like to give thanks to the Hara Model Railway Museum, Takashimaya in Yokohama, Luke Bryan Photography, KATO, Medical Art, and Sony Creative Products, the official license holder for Thomas the Tank Engine in Japan. I hope they continue to put on more events like this in the future. And of course, thank you to my old friends Tetsu GWL and Sodomel1992 for coming along with me this time. By the way, these two also own some of the props that were actually used in the show. Be sure to check out their Instagram accounts as well. Until next time, bye!